Domination University.
Ah,
We're going.
look at that. One step closer. All right, this is Francesca with my special guest, Anna. How are you doing today,
Hi.
Anna? Welcome to Domination University.
Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
For sure. And Anna, you're all the way in Austin right now, so I appreciate you dialing in. You're a couple hours ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually met in Bach Flower Essence class. So most
Here
people
in
are not going to. Right, exactly. Austin's one of the coolest cities like I've ever been to, by the way. Great place to learn and drink and get down.
Mhm. That's what I'm known for.
Right. Bach Flower Essences, though, I appreciate you joining me because it's one of the more esoteric healing modalities, and it's extremely difficult to describe to people. Do you find that in your experience with the flowers?
Yeah, I do. I think a lot of times when I'm trying to explain the flowers to people, I have to be really specific and kind of tailor it to their own ways that it would benefit them. And from there, it's easier for me to explain what the flowers are and what they do. I kind of work backwards in that way.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, that's. I should see if I can kind of do that. I have the tendency, being the dean of Domination University, to jump right in the deep end of the pool and go way down the rabbit hole and confuse people, or confuse the uninitiated to such, esoteric modalities as, things that deal with vibrational frequency, energetic blueprints, if you will, and discord between the soul and the personality. So those things will come up when you learn about Bach Flower Essences. But I really want to be able to spread the word because I feel like it's one of the more underrepresented modalities. And I got into the flowers probably about 10 years ago. And in the process, I kept trying to encourage my friends that were massage therapists or even counselors or did Reiki or acupuncture to try to incorporate them into their, healing work that they already do. And no one was really kind of jumping on it. They weren't really trying it. And so I had to, become a practitioner and go through hours and hours of training, which you're doing also, just because I think that it's such a effective, powerful, healing modality, and it increases your independence, which is very important to Domination University.
Well, I think that's a really good point. But in addition, a lot of the things that I learned came from my own self-studies, and you don't have to become certified to do that. The certification, I think it's important to clarify, is you get to know the flower's nuances a lot more clearly, but it's one of those very accessible healing modalities that anyone could do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. And I mean, so the Bach Institute, they have, their code of conduct, and they have, kind of their way that they're trying to organize everything, keep everybody with a certain integrity to what the practice was supposed to be. So not to diminish, everything that's comes with that. But one of the things that's crucial, in practicing with the flowers is to be able to allow people to be independent with them, to have the awareness. Now, not everybody is going to want to know everything about them, but I think one of the things that's important to me is that it's kind of a labor of love. It's something that, if you're doing it the right way, you'll be able to help people, and they're not going to need to take the flowers forever, or they're not going to be as reliant on you.
Exactly.
Awesome. So, those are some of the things that come along in terms of the code of conduct. Anything for me and my spiritual path and, different things that I used in natural medicine, whatever, just the number one thing is that it has to be able to increase my independence. Like, I'm not going to sell my own autonomy, my own independence on some like magic thing that's going to do this or that. But I think in terms of magic, do you watch American Horror Story? Have you seen The Coven?
I haven't. I'm not very into watching things, but is it on Netflix?
I can't remember. It's on one of those, but
okay.
It's one of the seasons is all about witches, and that season's The Coven, and they just brought him back for American Horror Story, Apocalypse. Apocalypse is the new one, and you might see. I know you're not on social media too much, which is very healthy of you, but you probably see witches and covens and wickedness and pop stars with crystals, and you see this rise of affinity towards the supernatural and towards witchcraft. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And so one of the things I was kind of thinking and tying in, because I love Coven, I love American Horror Story, but I was thinking, it's as much as people, especially in the crazy world that we live in today, how we kind of need that sense of magic, that sense of almost like that there's an order, a natural order in place, or a natural this is hard for me to describe, but maybe you can help me out. Why do you think people are into witchcraft and the supernatural in the crazy time that we live in now?
It's a good question. I think that there's some sort of as far as relating to the crazy times, I think there's something to be said about reconnecting with the unexplainable magic that the world has to offer that you wouldn't otherwise know unless you let yourself become overwhelmed by it or overtaken by it, or just letting it happen and then not necessarily questioning why, because right now we live in an age where we can say, okay, Google, what is the answer to this? And there's no explanation for that. And I think that is an important part of being alive.
I hear you on that. I was thinking about the idea of real magic from a practical standpoint, because if I was like Cordelia on Coven, I would just like explode shit, and I would just fuck people up, and I just cast my magic. Oh my gosh, it's so great. I love it. So there's just this fantasy, I think, that every person has into having superpowers.
Sure.
But the reality of things is that real magic in this world, or at least as far as we've pierced the veil, as far as we've been allowed to bring in energy from maybe other worlds, the real magic in this world right now is the ability to have control over your emotions and to direct your energy in a manner appropriate to manifesting your desires. That is real magic, and you can quote me on that.
I think that's a good description.
Thank you. That's where the flowers come in for me, because they've been so helpful to me in being able to work with my emotions, because I'm a super emotional person. Very emotional. So before we go into it anymore, because that's essentially, what most people are going to use the flowers for is for stress management. It's for working with your emotions, and it's, maybe personality tuning, stuff like that. Do you want to add to that in any way?
Yeah, I think there's two ways you can do it in terms of a long term, if you want to work with something like over time, with a goal, or a short term being like, I'm feeling like this today, how can I help manage that? I think that, that's what I would like to add to that.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things that we can't control in this world, and our emotions is one of the things that we can, and using the flowers can definitely help you do that, or at least they've been crucial to me. So how would you describe the flowers? I'm going to put it on you. And for everyone out here who might be listening who doesn't know what the heck flower essences are, Bach flower essences are, how would you describe them? And we'll just hash out some ideas, because this is the issue that I have most of the time.
Yeah, I think that saying it in a way that the entire podcast listeners can understand. So,
well, keep in mind there's going to be a lot of witches listening. This is the audience is mostly witches and bad bitches at the moment.
Okay, cool. That's helpful. So I would say that flower essences extract the spirit of a flower and the characteristic of a flower in a way in which it harmonizes with aspects of your soul that go with certain moods and feelings. And so if you're looking at it from a vibrational and quantum perspective, you harmonize the spirit of the flower with that which is inside of you. And by doing that, you kind of have like a mirror effect where like the light is seeing the light and kind of explodes that atom so that that those emotions can flow more freely. And so when you're doing that, you eliminate and or reduce that one specific aspect that is challenging, that one emotion, that one feeling, and you can allow that to flow freely and open it up so that you can allow other things in. And sometimes after you do that, other stuff comes up, but you kind of work through it in layers. And so the essences help bring up your vibration in that way and make you more able to be your true self.
That was awesome.
That's really ethereal.
See, that's the problem. I felt like your description was like so perfect, but the problem with your description is that it's heavy. You know, you're getting down, to it from an energetic standpoint, from a vibrational standpoint. And unless someone has an idea of what the difference between their spirit and their soul and their emotions and their mental chatter and their ego is, it's kind of hard to differentiate. So I'm going to try to add to that. And I have a couple of references, but I thought your description was absolutely perfect. So you were kind of talking about, introducing that particular vibration. And I'm not going to try to rephrase it just in case I say it a little off from what you said, because I totally agree with everything that you said. But so I think of things a lot of times in opposites, and I see basically the existence of polarity and the use of the flowers. You have maybe, I like to talk about it with a note that's out of tune. So, let's say you have a guitar and the E string is not playing an E. It's playing a D, so it's off. And so by introducing the E, it's almost like a lighthouse for the soul. And it's almost how like singers will, maybe if they need to sing a certain note, they ask someone to play the note on a keyboard. They're like, play me that E. And they're like, duh. And someone's like, here's the E. Ah. And then the singer's like, yeah, and then they got it. So there's kind of the opposites where maybe it's the E's completely inverted and it's like way off, or maybe it's just off by one. It's a D that needs to be an E. And the difference between that from like an emotional thing is, let's say it's a timid person who needs to be strong, a timid person that needs courage. So you don't focus on the fact that they're timid. You don't focus on the fact that there's some residual fear or there's like some self-doubt. You focus on courage. You focus on, all right, this is what you want. You want to stay in your space. You want to hold your space. You want to speak your truth. You want to get here to that direction. So that's how I kind of think of it, as a lighthouse for the soul, or a tuning fork. I was also thinking of it at kind of like a coach. So like, let's say you have an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other shoulder, and the little devil's telling you to be afraid. The little devil's telling you not even to try. And, it's comparing you to like, unattainable standards, and it's just talking lots of smack. And, that can be kind of parts of us, whether it's our ego or if it's fear or it's other people's energy that's in our space influencing us. And then you have the angel on the shoulder it's your coach. It's talking you up the whole time. It's like, you can do this. Put one foot in front of the other. You don't know what you're even capable of. If you can dream it, you can accomplish it. So in that way, I was kind of thinking like, what does it mean if you have a particular flower remedy that you're using for courage, and throughout the day, you're constantly introducing that vibration of courage into your body? Obviously, that's going to affect you. If you're around like a negative coworker all day, that typically affects you. If you're around a really positive person, that's going to affect you. We get affected by everything in our environment in one way or another.
Right.
One other thing, my fiance actually, he's used the flowers a number of times, and he likes it. He refers to himself as a muggle, which is funny because I talk about the witch dialogue, the witch explanation versus the muggle explanation. He's like, what do I know? I'm just a muggle. And I'm like, oh, babe, you're not a muggle. But he's like, I think of the flowers as meditation in a bottle.
That's interesting.
So yeah.
Well, I think
what do you think about that?
I think that's really interesting because usually when you have that, you've come to the conclusion with either yourself or your practitioner about what you're taking. And so each time you take it, you think about, or I think about at least, what my intentions were when I took that bottle. And so the frequency of the vibrations goes through my body, and I think I have more of an intention behind it and like moving towards what will come of it because of like my reminder of taking it 3 times a day. Or like putting it in my water. Usually if I put it in my water, which is usually the way that I take the essences, I think about it when I'm drinking my water. So those thoughts are just reminded and become a part of what I'm putting in, like the frequencies I'm putting into my body as well, which probably amplifies it.
Right. Yeah, totally. And I think, what's kind of hit pop culture in a more significant fashion as of late than the flower essences actually have is where you have the blessed water. I think it's because they had a little bit on that in The Secret. And you sow water. They showed like the crystal patterns of water that's been cursed versus water that's been blessed. And I can't remember the last that I saw in it, but it was actually really cool. I think it was frozen water, but you see these beautiful past patterns, these crystalline, like almost like sacred geometry-esque, perfect mathematical, like geometric shapes in this blessed water. So if you think about that and you believe in the law of attraction and you believe in the ability, to influence things from an energetic standpoint, that, that's all there in the Bach Flower Essence practice because it has that awakening. And we were talking about that earlier about how your job as a practitioner is to teach people whenever proper. You don't want to keep your clients in the dark. You want them to be able to understand the different personality errors or like kind of spiritual hiccups one might be having with a particular situation or like something that's coming up for them. But when you actually capture the vibrational essence of a flower or a tree in the practice, there's 38 remedies used in the Bach Flower Essence practice. You're talking about such high vibrational frequency. So you can usually tell like the vibration of a plastic cup is different than the vibration of bone china or like, a nice wooden cup, something like that. Imagine the vibrational frequency of a flower that just bloomed or is in that perfect peak of spring where it just has so much energy and it's resonating in this beautiful manner. That's how you actually collect the flowers for the remedies. Do you have any experience with that, or are you in a better position?
A little. I've played around with it a little bit. I know that it is important to use. Bach recommended and strongly suggests using a crystal bowl to catch the flower because the light will influence how the essence is extracted through its vibrations because of what the crystal bowl is made out of, rather than having a plastic bowl or any other type of thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, so you're pretty much going to have that type of procedure, or with the trees. The trees you can go a little bit more aggressively because a lot of times you have to boil those. But so this is, again, it's vibration. When you think about how do you work on your emotions, how do you work on your stress, in a lot of ways, those things are vibrational. There's
and it is interesting because that just reminded me of how something like if you are stressed and you take the corresponding flowers to match it, sometimes I just feel like it just melts it away and kind of dissolves it and makes it like a clogged faucet that just had some baking soda and vinegar poured down it, and now it'll flow. The water and the energy can now channel through you because of the essences that you've taken.
Yeah. Yeah, one of kind of my profound reflections of taking Star of Bethlehem. So Star of Bethlehem is one of the remedies. It's also one of the ingredients in Rescue Remedy, which we'll talk about afterwards. But Star of Bethlehem is one that I would encourage any person in the world to try if they've ever experienced trauma or shock. And most people have in one form or another. And unfortunately, looking around, I have family members, I have friends where they're still living with shock and trauma from years ago that's kind of planted itself in their body or in their whole, human experience, and they can't work with it. But my experience taking Star of Bethlehem is that it really shrank the trauma. It was almost like I either got bigger and the trauma was small and I could just kind of push it away and move through it, or it just literally shrank it. It's hard to say, but it was quite a profound experience I had, using Star.
Yeah, a lot of them, it's sometimes nice to work with one essence at a time and just play with them and see what it really feels like as you take it regularly over the period of, say, 3 weeks or so, like a lunar cycle. Because if you sometimes when you're looking at the 38 essences, you can get really into oh, well, I need this, 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 and this. But to focus in on one thing, you can really notice a lot and see how profound the results can be.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't typically do that personally, but I have been trying to do some meditation work, and I actually have something I'm going to launch next year that's going to kind of describe some different energy work that I've been doing and kind of experimenting. But I've tried using the flowers individually after certain kind of passages in meditation where I just felt I need beech, or I need walnut, or maybe heather or holly. I can't remember what was coming up, but I was using remedies that I don't typically use, and I just kind of had gone there emotionally in my, my inner work I was doing. And it was quite profound because I've been using them long enough where I was able to intuit myself, oh my gosh, this is what this feels like when it's in the negative. And then you introduce the positive, that, vibrational essence. And I was just in a position to flip the switch, because my intention was right there. So it's quite magical. I freaking love the flowers. So right now, what's today? It's December 9th, right? Have you felt any of the holiday crazy coming out? Because I have.
I'm feeling very horny about it. It has not come out yet, but it's definitely, it will come, and then when it's there, I'll probably feel overwhelmed by it.
Oh, just go to Joann Fabric. I thought I'd be safe. Yeah, I went there yesterday. I could feel the crazy coming out. And part of it is just because I'm not generally a patient person. I live in Los Angeles, and on a daily basis, my patience is like just eaten away by trying to drive down the street. Just trying to park at a coffee shop, and my patience like, I don't know how much I have left. So I felt like the holiday time would be a great time to give an introduction to the flower essences, because I'm not trying to go down the rabbit hole and talk about the different categories, fear and loneliness, and what's the other one? There's 6 categories, 7 categories. There's so many different things that you can use the remedies for, but I want to encourage people to try to use Rescue Remedy this holiday season, especially if you're about to lose your cool, because cherry plum this time of year, cherry plum is in full effect for me, for the feeling that you're going to explode, and it is one of the Rescue Remedy ingredients as well. So just for a moment, I want to make sure I specify this. So in the Bach Flower Essence practice, there's 38 remedies. Dr. Bach saw that to be the blueprint of any like stress, personality dysfunction, spiritual kind of bliss. Yeah, so everything else, everything could be built upon these 38 remedies. And to get down to the core source, you only needed the 38 remedies. But then in working on complicated things, complicated people, you can make 200 million different remedies, I think is what our teacher said. Do you remember that? Something, it's quite a lot. Yeah.
It'd be, 38 times 7? Because typically you put 7, you can, would that be the math equation for that?
Yeah, I remember her saying 200 million different combinations. And really you should only work, like you said, there's definitely a lot of benefit to working with one remedy at a time, but you don't want to over dilute. However, for someone who might be intrigued by this, might be looking for anything to help with their stress, especially this time of year, Rescue Remedy is the exception to the otherwise rule that there's no one-size-fits-all. There's so many different combinations of remedies. Unfortunately, you can't just be like, oh, your kidneys are fucked up. Well, here, take this. You have to look at what is going on energetically, emotionally, spiritually, what type of stress is going on to identify. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to mention that it is important to note that the flower essences do not address any physical symptoms or ailments. The purpose of them is dealing with the emotions that you have towards them. So while I just am saying that because you mentioned if your kidneys are fucked up, taking the essences will not cure any sort of kidney issue, but it might change your perspective on how you're dealing with it.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point. And also, when you're stressed out about something, it doesn't, the physical body doesn't operate as well. American Medical Association has proven that up to 90% of stress physical illness is caused by stress. Yeah. So,
and you could look in an Ayurvedic and see, or different perspectives have like different emotions are tied to different organs. That wouldn't necessarily be a certified Bach Flower Remedy practitioner sort of perspective, but you can do it like kidneys are related to fear and linked to fear. So, but this is kind of going down a rabbit hole, so maybe I should stop.
No, you don't hold yourself back.
Just going off the idea of kidneys. In some traditions, the kidneys are related to fear, or the liver is related to anger. And so from that, you could look at it from that perspective and address it through Bach flower remedies using fear or anger essences.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and that's actually mirrored in Chinese medicine as well. So just kind of adding on to your point is, let's say, you're having liver issues or kidney issues, the flowers are not going to go in your body and physically fix those issues, but they can help you work and, let go of the fear or the anger that might be just adding extra stress to your kidneys and your liver. And then, the less stress, the more your body is in a state of ease, the more it can function properly, how it was designed to do. Because your body is designed to fix all the issues that it comes about. You have an immune system. You have an endocrine system. You have, all these different systems to move things around. And it blows my mind how amazingly well built the body is. And when it's not functioning properly, sometimes there can be an emotional or a personality issue that's contributing to poor health that you can address without an invasive, type of, conventional medicine that's, and that's why the flower essences also don't have side effects. So give them a try. Why not?
Yeah, babies and elderly people, people on medication, everyone can take them and with no repercussions of it. So that is important to know.
Exactly. Cool. So do you want to talk about, before we go into rescue remedy, because I kind of want to tie up with that, especially because someone could just spontaneously buy it at Sprouts or Whole Foods. You can just pick one up. You can try it today when you're driving down the street, or you're about to, meet up with your in-laws and they piss you off and you want to try some the flowers. How else do you use them that you want to share right here, right now?
So first off, I do want to say that I don't shop at Whole Foods, but I've heard word that Whole Foods does not carry Bach flower essences anymore after Amazon bought it because their turnover was slow. I
see it in some of the stores. The store down the street has it. So, unfortunately, I think it probably depends on the store. But they're going to have the rescue, though. A Whole Foods will probably have rescue remedy, even if it doesn't have the flowers that it sells individually.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that correction. So the question was the flowers that I use a lot of?
Yeah, or anything else that you want to add to that doesn't have to do with rescue remedy. And because, I'm kind of directing the one size fits all, but to get someone intrigued, because obviously you and I, we love the flowers. We use them all the time. What do you want to add anything about your favorite remedies or favorite uses?
So I think I'll say how I got into the flowers was working with my daughter with them. That's how I really got hooked, because I saw just how much of a direct effect they had and how obvious it was that they were working, because she was a baby/early toddler when I started using them with her. And so she wasn't having any expectation or being told what was going to happen. And so it was really interesting to see how dramatically they would affect her. So I think that with her, I've used them a lot incrementally through time to get through temper tantrums or growing phases, and just changes in life. So I just want to add that into it. If anyone has small children, I highly recommend using them and looking into them. And rescue remedy is definitely a must-have if you have small children. If you're not going to get it for yourself, get it for them, and then you'll start taking it as well. And I've gone through in the past 3 years a lot of changes, and I would say walnut is great because it helps with transitions in lives. That's the one that's coming to mind right now. One of my favorite remedies is Francis. It seems to be one that really resonates with me a lot. And there's a lot of different ways that you can view that, which could be a whole different conversation. But it has to do with decision making and vacillating and being able to like stay true on your path and knowing which fork to turn down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are always good for me.
I do walnut a lot. I think also, to throw it out, we haven't mentioned this, how you can use it not just for your kids, but for your plants and your pets. And so walnut has been helpful if I have a plant that maybe I kind of neglected it, or I replanted it, or it's just having some trauma for some weather or something. So I'll use walnut and maybe star or just rescue and walnut for a plant going through
and
changes.
Your pets too.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
cool.
white chestnut is one of the top-selling individual remedies, and I was actually using it a lot because someone stole my car recently, and it's like this whole conversation. I'm not trying to get into that conversation right now, and the reason why I was taking white chestnut is so I didn't have to have a story about that conversation running through my head all the time, because even if I have the right to be mad and I have the right to, be the victim, I ain't trying to be the victim 24/7. I have a piece of paper from the police station that says I'm a victim. I don't have to be like, have that story of being the victim running through my head and having that stress. And I mean, it could be a little bit of a personality thing with me where I can easily hold on to stuff. I've taken white chestnut many times, often with the combination of walnut, for work stress, when you have the people that you work with and you can't get away and you're stuck with them and you got to see them and you're so mad because you spend so much energy, and time around them, and you just have this grievance that just wants to drive you crazy. And it's that the grievance in your mind, or your interpretation of the drama, that it can just really fuck people up and really hurt the quality of our life, because, all of us at one point and another are going to have a work drama, and it's whatever it is. But, our ability to relieve ourselves and to clock out and not take that stuff home with us and to have a healthy work-life balance is something that, maybe you have to work on with your particular job, but no matter what, you always have to work on it within yourself and the relationship that you have to your work and to the people you work with.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing, especially in these days these times we're living in now. Everyone's always working all the time and always connected to things, and our minds never really stop moving. So I think to be able to allow yourself even the idea to take a remedy to help you let that go and drop that off will lessen your stress.
Right. So let's talk about rescue, because you can just pick this up. You can pick up the pastels. I personally like the spray. It looks like breath spray, but it's Rescue Remedy. It's yellow, or those little pearls. That's what I like to take.
The pearls are
personally.
Great.
Yeah, and you can get them for what, like $6 to $8, $10 maybe if you buy like a big thing. So they're affordable. You can pick them up at pretty much any like health food store, and you can take it whenever you're stressed out. I actually put this in my case study that I submitted for the school and stuff. But one of the persons I was working with, we had come a long way after a couple visits. On the third visit that we went to, sit down together and talk about the flowers, her sister had just been in a car accident. And she was like super stressed out. Her sister almost lost her leg. It was a big deal. I gave her Rescue Remedy as soon as I saw her. I'm like, here, just take this right now.
Yeah.
She wanted me to make some Rescue Remedy for her sister who's in the hospital, who ended up being in the hospital for months. And I'm like, no. I'm not, we're not trying to, have your sister start peeling back the layers of the onion, if you will, with everything she's going in. She's in such a dramatic state of shock. Just give her Rescue Remedy, and she'll, give her some time before you start digging for information, right? So Rescue Remedy is also referred to as the crisis formula. or the Band-Aid, if you will. It's a great thing when you don't know why, you feel like you're going to explode. You don't have to necessarily know why. You can, if this can help center you and calm you down. But if you do know why, by all means, you feel like you're going to explode because you're driving on the 405 freeway and nobody has any road etiquette, take the rescue remedy.
Yeah, actually, there was a crisis I had with my daughter. We got hit by a car and she broke her arm, and I remember on the way there just giving it to her over and over again. And I think it was really helped her deal with the situation once we got there.
Yeah, because you can't. I mean, if you broke your arm, you can't control that it's broken. You need medical attention, but your ability to stay calm in the process, your ability to heal faster, because you're experiencing as much peace as you possibly can in that situation. Those are things that we can control. That's the magic that we do have in this world. Anna, do you want to talk about some of the other ingredients in Rescue Remedy, just so people know, what they're getting when they put it in their mouth?
Yeah, so there is clematis for being present and not looking towards the future and staying where you are in that body space at that time.
Yeah, so kind of when you have like almost an out of body, you can kind of tell when you see people who are just super ungrounded, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in a state, if you have this huge thing happen to you, that's one of the things that, you can kind of address.
Right. It brings you back to like what you're dealing with and not floating out into the future or like imagining what things will be or how they could be. It just brings you back to what is actually happening.
Exactly. Another ingredient, my favorite, impatience, for agitation and restlessness and just being a not so patient person in real life, which surprises people. But I've been taking impatience pretty regularly now for over a year, probably a couple of years. What else?
There's cherry plum for being able to fear of losing control and having like random bursts of energy, or not bursts of energy, but like
hysteria.
Yes. And
you feel like you're gonna freak out.
Exactly.
Cherry plum.
You just can't.
Take cherry plum this holiday season, I'm telling you. Mm-hmm. It works wonders when you're waiting for someone to cut your fabric at Joann Fabrics. You just, where are they not using the number system? I pulled a freaking number. I'm waiting for my number to be pulled, and they're just like rogue. Sorry. Okay. I'm going to take my potion some more.
You're clenching fists.
Yeah, exactly. Rock rose. Rock rose is another ingredient for terror, like a very strong fear. So, these are meant to work together. If someone has a trauma or a shock, Star of Bethlehem.
In the headlights.
Yeah.
So there's unable to move.
Yeah, and so that in combination with Star of Bethlehem, which is also in it, deer in the headlights, as well as the residual shock and trauma that you hold on to after an event, that shakes you up. Is that all of them?
All the wonderful things that happen. Yeah, those 5.
Impatience, clematis, cherry plum, rock rose, and Star of Bethlehem. So try it this Christmas. And actually, if you want to work with myself or Anna, I can have our contact information up, and you can start peeling back the layers of the onion. You can start just with Rescue Remedy, and then you can also explore into some of the things that maybe you've been holding on to, personality stuff that maybe isn't serving you for the new year. Have a New Year's resolution.
Goals?
Yeah.
Goals are great because it can help you. You can address the things that are holding you back from attaining them, and or just have a little bit of extra oomph to get you towards them.
Exactly. And in fact, for me, I feel like I've had a good year of accomplishments. And one of the things that's helped me is actually taking impatience on the regular, because I've always had goals and I have a lot of energy, but, just addressing the personality error in myself that doesn't, deal with very well with situations that don't just manifest instantly. Addressing my impatience has been huge for me accomplishing things, because I'm willing to do the work and wait, for what I want.
And or you aren't done with it before it's even started, which is another aspect
God.
you can for impatience.
I'm like on to the next. I'm like halfway done. God damn it, it's not done yet. I have a new idea.
Yep. One of the benefits of seeing a practitioner is they know the nuances of remedies like that.
Yeah, definitely. So when I started using the flowers, I actually worked with an herbologist, which is funny. It's because they had a good amount of knowledge about this and that, but there was a lot of things they weren't quite doing right. And then taking the training that we took, you realize why it could have been done better, but I still benefited from it. And then I read a book, and if you're not in a position to reach out to someone else, maybe this is something that you feel you need to explore independently. By all means, the first time I read an actual book on the essences, it was hugely changing, and I felt like I gained so much from that. But the benefit of actually taking the classes and working with someone like Anna or myself is that we have studied the heck out of it. We know all the different nuances. There's the things that are easy to see. And Anna, just to give you some props, in the classes that we took, I was always so impressed with your ability to recognize such subtleties, whereas everyone else could easily be duped. You were always so good at seeing, and I'm not just saying that. I think I gave you some credit during the class, but you could see past. You weren't distracted by, the illusions of some types of almost like facets that aren't necessarily indicative of the core. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
it does help that I took a lot of psychology classes when I was in college. So
now I get it. Now I get it.
It's all studying the soul, right?
Exactly. I have my minor in psychology. It's the best. So I want to close with a couple quotes from Dr. Bach. One of the books he wrote was Heal Thyself. He wrote it in 1931, I believe. And keep in mind, like this study, it's almost 100 years old. It's practiced in over 66 countries. The doctor who invented it was a real doctor in London doing surgeries, creating vaccines. He was a homeopath. He had a thriving business, and he gave it up because he felt like the real medicine, or the medicine of the future, would be able to address the personality and the energetic and the mental effects of stress on our bodies, and how it contributes to disease. So this wasn't like some fly-by-night guy who just felt like he saw the answer in the sky one night. This is someone who was a full-blown practicing physician in London who explored this. And a couple of the quotes I want to share. Disease will never be cured or eradicated by present materialistic methods, for the simple reason that disease in its origin is not material. What we know as disease is an ultimate result produced in the body, the end product of deep and long-acting forces, and even if material treatment alone is apparently successful, this is nothing more than a temporary relief unless the real cause has been removed. Dr. Bach in Heal Thyself, Chapter 1, page 2. And one other one, there's so many good ones, but...
that quote is just, it resonates with me a lot in some people that I know in my life, and just like, being unable to move on from something. And when you learn about the flowers, you'll come through your own learning time and cycle that unless someone wants to know about them, it's not necessarily the best idea to offer your help and to say you have the cure, because everyone is a human. Dr. Bach, I think he spoke till the day he died, if I remember Nancy correctly, is that like everyone is human and everyone comes to things at their own pace. And so with that, when you're seeing someone, you need to look at someone where they're at, not and like where they currently are, not necessarily where they've been, because you can only move and heal as fast as you're ready.
Right. And that takes a very strong amount of spiritual wisdom, because all of us, no matter how evolved you are, you probably have those moments where you want to be right and you want to be the victim. You feel wrong. You want to, feel owed, or you have your grievance. I mean, it's very difficult, to be able to be neutral in states of conflict. It's a very natural human thing to blame and point out, another's failures, rather than to recognize, like, hey, we're all human. This is all part of the, how we're evolving. This is, so there's so much love and wisdom in the practice and in the writings. There's such a beautiful, and that's why I think it's so powerful, is because there's such a pure acceptance and understanding of how you do have certain personality errors and spiritual dysfunctions versus, the moral crusaders who say what is right and wrong and good and bad.
Right. Yeah, only you can decide that for yourself.
Right.
Be the best you can be. And the flowers can help with that, so that you feel more content in who you are and how you're living your life.
Here's one more quote. So long as our souls and personalities are in harmony, all is joy and peace, happiness and health. It is when our personalities are led astray from the path laid down by the soul, either by our own worldly desires or by the persuasion of others, that a conflict arises. This conflict is the root cause of disease and unhappiness. Heal Thyself, Chapter 2, page 7.
There was a point in my life I just gone through a huge change, and I was very stressed, and I had like my boobs. I'm a healthy person with no health issues, but like my boobs were like lumpy and like hurting, like I had like some sort of like cysts in them, and I was not sleeping at night because my right side hurt, or they thought there was something wrong with my gallbladder. But I'd gone through a bunch of like testing, and nothing came back as it was diagnosable for anything. It was pretty much just entirely because I was stressed. And so as I learned to deal with that stress and got into studying and taking the flowers and getting into that world, all those things kind of dissolved. And I know myself to be a very hypersensitive person. So when I'm stressed, like I get really, really sick. And so the flowers have been amazing, like very amazing and very effective on my life, and like very impactful for that reason, because I know myself and like what happens when I do get stressed. And since I have started taking the flowers and incorporating them into my daily life, I've had a lot less health issues. So that's also something to keep in mind.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, stress is tough. And I mean, one of the things, though, is that you're a young woman. If you would not have addressed it the way you did, who knows how, if you would have continued that way decade after decade, you might find yourself midlife or later having all these issues of arthritis or having actual physical, dysfunction in the organs at a greater extent. So,
right.
I mean, there's a lot of things that Western conventional medicine is best to treat, and there's a lot of things where it's not best to treat, stress and emotions and even inflammation in the body, those kind of beginning signs of dysfunction. I'll give you another example. I made a tincture for one of my old clients who was dealing with cancer. So I'm not suggesting that you just take flower essences to deal with, the stress of cancer as an alternative to actually, getting treatment. But in addition to the treatment that he was doing very progressive stuff, City of Hope even. I gave him gentian for discouragement. I gave him star for, trauma and shock. But when you're discouraged, because you have cancer, gentian is one of the things we would look to try to bring back the encouragement. And then I also gave him gorse because he admitted to me, especially as you're beating up your body, if you have to take chemo, if you have to take really invasive, aggressive medicine, that can really, be a stressful thing to the body. And you got to do what you got to do, but gorse is one of the things that we offer when someone is feeling hopeless.
I think that's a really interesting note to add, is that you can use it not only for the mood that you're feeling, but the things that your body is experiencing. So that the chemo would have like a poisoning effect. So to release that sort of memory within your body as the poisoning effect that's going to kill you, but more so releasing it from that idea that, gorse is, I guess we didn't say that, or you didn't say that gorse is like end all be all, nothing's going to look better, things are going downhill from here and there's no looking up. So giving that to someone for their body effect, in addition to maybe whatever he's experiencing in a mind way, or like emotionally.
Yeah. They're amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Heck yeah. Flower power, dude. I'll look you up next time I'm in Austin. Have some flower power and some cocktails.
I know some good places.
Awesome. Anything else that you want to say? I can also have some links if you want anyone to be able to consult with you for a session.
Sure. Yeah, so with that, sessions you can do it one-on-one, but you can also do them because of the nature of this being based off of a conversation with a client, is that you can do it over the phone or you can do it on Skype. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be in Austin to do this or in LA to see you. You can do it remotely.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Anna Combet. Did I say that right?
You said it, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for joining us on Domination University.
Thank you so much for having me again. I enjoyed it. My first time on a podcast.
We popped your cherry plum. Just kidding.